Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ray. I'm a detransition male. And today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be going after someone on my side, I guess, someone on the gender critical side of things, because this person just has been putting out these videos about autogynephilia very consistently and talking on Twitter and just being completely wrong about it. And I've seen numerous people, including myself, correct her on this issue. Um, and she just continues to say the same false things over and over and over, despite many people correcting her on this topic. I'm speaking, of course, about Arielle Scarcella, who is a lesbian YouTuber, content creator, who's been putting out a lot of videos lately, sort of pushing it back against, these sort of uh, the radical trans activists and gender identity ideology. But a lot of her videos lately have been about autogynephilia, and she sort of does this move where she says, well, these autogynephiles are ruining things for true transsexuals. So she's bought into this true transsexual concept where there's true trans women over here in this bucket, and then there's like not true trans women in the other bucket, the autogynephiles. And those are all the terrible, creepy, predator fetishists, people. So she's made this sharp divide between the fake bad trans women and the real good trans women. And it's just totally bullshit, basically. So I'm gonna like break it down, react to this video, and yeah, just show that she doesn't know what she's talking about. And she needs to stop talking about this until she corrects it, because she's been corrected on this on Twitter many times. Many people have pointed out the flaws in her analysis, but she just continues. Why? Because it's good for clicks. It's good for clicks because these creepy autogynephiles that she showcases on her YouTube, like this person right here on the video, it's good for clicks. That's all it is. It's like it's engagement bait, basically. So all right, let's watch the video and dive in. Also, I should notice the title of the video I'm reacting to is called "This is Not a Normal Trans Woman: Psychology Behind Internal Paraphilia." Right off the bat, we know that's false because she's referring to autogynephilia, and the implication is that if you have autogynephilia, you're not a normal trans woman. Well, newsflash, the vast majority of trans women are of the autogynephilic type. So it is actually normal, the normal trans woman, aka pull any random trans woman off the street, and they're likely to be autogynephilic. but when you form your understanding of what autogynephilia is based on the most outrageous TikToks, then of course you're going to come up with like a warped perception of what this is all about. Because okay, let me continue.
I'm a little trans girl, small and cute. Guys look at me like I'm a piece of meat.
Okay, this guy, I can't remember his name, like Josh something. Oh, Josh Cedar. I'm like 99% positive. This guy is just a troll. It's just like an elaborate troll. So yeah, that's not a trans woman. That's just a troll.
And it's like, up here, guys, up here.
This person is not a trans woman. They are an autogynephile, and I can.
Okay, so right off the bat, she says that is not a trans woman. That is an autogynephile. And the implication of that statement is that if you have autogynephilia, then you cannot be a trans woman, which is stupid because Ray Blanchard, who came up with the theory, proposed that there are two types of transsexual women. One is the autogynephilic type, and one is the homosexual type. So the person who invented the theory of autogynephilia, who knows more about it than arguably anyone, he doesn't think that if you're an autogynephile, you can't be a trans woman. The whole point of the theory is not to say, oh, if you have autogynephilia, you're not a real trans woman. The theory is supposed to explain why there's different types of trans women. That's what it's all about.
can prove it. Welcome to another psychological deep dive. All you really need is just a little psychology and side-by-side juxtaposition. It's not that difficult. Watch until the end of the video though. Some things may surprise you. And I have a few actual transsexual women to help me. As an actual
Notice how she says actual transsexual. Ray Blanchard, who came up with the theory of autogynephilia, said that there's two types of transsexuals. There's the autogynephilic transsexual and the homosexual transsexual. But he didn't say that if you are an autogynephile, you're not a true transsexual, or that you're not a transsexual. So this whole idea like, oh, an actual transsexual, that's such nonsense. There's no way to define that. And it's just ridiculous.
lesbian, I understand what it's like existing in society as a woman, right? And I care about others who wish to do the same, aka actual trans women, transsexual.
Okay, so what does that mean? Actual transsexuals, actual trans women. Well, trans women of the autogynephilic type, they also wish to live like women. That's like the definition of what it means. So it's like if that's your definition, what it means to be a true transsexual is you really want to live like a woman, then yeah, like autogynephiles fit that category because that's pretty much what defines the nature of the phenomenon.
Meanwhile, over and over again, I see myself getting from people saying that I am obsessing over hating on trans people when the majority of people that I hate on are AGPs. They're not actual trans women, aka somebody like this.
So again, it's so stupid. Autogynephilia is a type of trans woman.
It's like really big. Like you are clearly a male and talking about entering your club hoe phase. Who does?
There are plenty of homosexual transsexuals who talk about being hoes. Like arguably a lot of the homosexual transsexuals, they're the ones who are super into men, super into having sex with men, who sort of come out of that gay male hypersexual culture. They're also big hoes, and they talk about being hoes. I know them. So talking about being a hoe does not mean you're somehow you like to have sex, therefore you're not a true transsexual. Like, what? That's so stupid.
Who does that? Even as an actual 50-year-old woman, who does that?
I'm entering my club hoe phase. This is gonna be fun.
That's an AGP. Obsessed with being a biological mother, getting periods, and having a smirk on your face the entire time. That's an AGP.
Okay, yes. Autogynephilia is, sometimes defined by having physiological autogynephilia, having a desire to embody the physiological functions of being female, like lactation, menstruation, pregnancy. But I've also known homosexual, transsexual women who, insofar as they want to be straight women, they want to have relationships and be, wives of straight husbands. They also wish that they could get pregnant. They wish that they could, have babies because they want to be women, because they want to live into that role. It's just the underlying psychological motivation is different, because in the case of the autogynephile, that desire to get pregnant comes, often from this more like erotic fantasy plays. But there's also homosexual transsexuals who wish to get pregnant because they want to be regular straight women married to regular straight guys having regular straight babies. So this desire is not unique to the autogynephilic type.
Why is this thing not hot?
It sounds crazy, but trans women can produce milk to feed a baby. The act of feeding your child yourself is affirming to anyone, not just trans people.
That is an AGP. So what is the difference between being an autogynephile and an actual trans woman? There is a big difference between living in reality, real life, and fantasy. And honestly, fantasy can be fun if done the right way. Like, I don't know, chatting it up with your favorite movie villains using poly AI.
Okay, this is an ad. Let me skip forward.
Evan, in the Poly AI app to
I'm for what's right. those liberal elites
are people that are born male that have gender dysphoria, support companies that support this channel and our morals. Back to the AGPs, who are also living in a fantasy world. Trans women are people that are born male that have gender dysphoria who do their very best to pass as the opposite sex and live.
Okay, so autogynephiles also have gender dysphoria. It's just that in the case of the autogynephile, the gender dysphoria has its roots in the underlying autogynephilic predisposition. And they want to pass as women. So like that's very common. Like, so to say that, oh, like real transsexuals are male and they have gender dysphoria and they want to be women. Well, that's also autogynephiles. So this distinction you're making doesn't make sense.
And live as such, right? We know this. Most of these types of people know that they're different or experience body dysmorphia, but gender dysphoria at around the age of 4 or 5 years old. And it follows.
Okay, so trying to artificially carve out, oh, well, if your gender dysphoria started when you're 4 or 5, then you're truly gender dysphoric. Whereas if your gender dysphoria started when you're 12 years old, then that's fake. That's bad. That's unreal. That is, to my mind, an artificial distinction that yes. But the purpose of this is to notice that there are two different types. There's some trans women who their gender dysphoria, their gender incongruence starts at that young age, 4 or 5 years old or whatever. And then there's some who starts, maybe 11 or 12. But also it's common for those trans women, the autogynephilic type, where their gender dysphoria starts, it sort of really starts kicking in like puberty, like 11, 12, 13 or whatever. There's often signs of gender incongruence at an even earlier age prior to that. So this idea that like, oh, well, you're only a real trans woman if your gender dysphoria started at a certain age, and if your gender dysphoria didn't start at a certain age, then you're fake. You're not a real transsexual. That, to me, that's so arbitrary. That's using something that is it's a contingent, and we can recognize the distinction between these two clusters of different trans women, which is why the whole purpose of the Blanchardian two-type typology is to say that yes, there are some trans women who have this one classical story, having the dysphoria in childhood, and then this other type who has it later. But the point of the typologies was not to say that one are the true transsexuals and the one are the fake transsexuals. The point is that there's two different types of transsexuals.
Follows them into adulthood, usually getting worse around puberty, which makes sense. They're developing breasts or developing facial hair, and it causes them even more distress. AGPs, on the other hand, are people that are born male who are turned on by the thought of inhabiting a female body, the idea of being or looking like a female. This bitch. Some consider this to be a fetish or sexualizing themselves as a woman.
We're gender fluid. Of course, we don't want to be objectified. Oh, you think I'm cute? Link in bio.
We're gender fluid. Hey.
Okay, that person's a cross-dresser. I don't think they identify as a trans woman anyway.
Babe, I thought I was going to wear that jacket tonight.
So of course my wife and I share clothes.
Others actually see it as a sexual orientation. Believe it or not, some of these people are actually not attracted to women or men, but they are attracted to themselves as a woman. But one thing is for sure, we can always tell the difference. Here's how to spot one. Number one, almost every single one of the AGPs that I've encountered, at least online or in real life, are over the age of 40 when they...
No, that's so stupid. That is so utterly wrong. There are so many young autogynephiles who are just young autogynephiles. Like almost every trans woman under the age of 30 is of the autogynephilic type. Just go on Reddit, go on Discord, go in these spaces where these young, trans women are hanging out. Like most of them are of the autogynephilic type, but they don't look like your 40-year-old, like trans woman. Like, so to say that, oh, you can tell who's the true AGP because the true AGPs are all over the age of 40. Like the lack of brain cells you need to make such a stupid statement, it just boggles the mind. Ariel, please stop talking about this. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just making so many logical errors. It just doesn't make sense.
And they come out. 2, most of them are married with kids. 3,
No, that's false. That is a old stereotype. That is not the case. Well, yes, that is the classical autogynephilic narrative. The vast majority of trans women are these young, sort of, nerdy, autistic. They don't have, girlfriends. They don't have much of a social life. I think that's the more common stereotype these days. Whereas the old stereotype of the married with kids, 40 years old, midlife crisis comes out. I think that's the older stereotype, which is actually the more the minority. Um,
3, all of them are straight. They're all attracted to women.
okay, but that's not surprising. That's just baked into the definition of what it means to be of autogynephilic. So yeah, that's sort of autogynephilic. So you have to be gynephilic to be autogynephilic, and gynephilic means attracted to women. So like, yeah, that's not a unique psychological insight. That's just literally recapitulating the definition of the term.
Switching sides.
4, weirdly enough, all of them or most of them want to look like their wife or wind up.
No, that's so stupid because most of them don't have wives. How can you say, oh, all of them want to look with their wives when most of them don't have wives? So that's a stupid thing to say.
Looking like their wife. 5, most of them have a horrible fashion sense and don't care
My God. So have you met every single trans woman on the planet? Like, you, Ariel, have you personally witnessed or observed the fashion sense of every single autogynephile on the planet? If autogynephilias make up 3 to 6% of the population, that's like tens of millions of trans women. There's no way you possibly have an understanding of what the fashion sense of tens of millions of trans women looks like. All you're basing your understanding of autogynephilic trans women on is TikTok and the internet and social media. That is not a good way to understand what the average autogynephilic transsexual is like. Oh my gosh.
don't care about passing as a female, even in
They do care about passing. They do. They absolutely do.
the slightest. Why do all these men look like their wives?
Okay, so this is like 6 people, and out of like tens of millions. Okay, so yeah, that's dumb.
It really is weird. Chris on X said, Carl Jung believed that the romantic love often involves a projection of unconscious aspects of the individual's psyche onto the partner. He argued that individuals tend to project their own unconscious feminine or masculine qualities onto their romantic partners, attributing qualities to them that they might actually possess. There's a lot of psychology behind this. Jung believed that this projection of the unconscious feminine side onto a romantic partner can lead to idealization and unrealistic expectations in relationships. When a man realizes that his wife does not possess the projected qualities he attributed to her, it can lead to a sense of delusionment and reevaluation of the relationship.
We're gender fluid. Of course we could walk in heels better than girls.
By better, do you mean worse? Because number 6, they make sure that you know that this is indeed a turn on for them.
Of course we have a girl voice. And a guy one.
I'm gender fluid. Of course I get gender euphoria when somebody calls me good girl.
Number 7, having the trans flag everywhere, AGP. Listen, you can be proud and you can be trans and you can speak about it online, but obsessing over it is a red flag for me personally, pun intended.
Why do I need the surgery if I'm already a woman? Well, that's because I was born with a condition that caused me to develop male sex characteristics.
Okay, number 8, standing out versus blending in. Does this bitch seem like they want to blend in at all? Actual transsexuals
That is a troll. That is just a troll. Like Josh Cedar I think he used to be on the Bachelorette or something like that, or The Bachelor, and now he's just trolling. This is a troll. You're falling for the troll. Don't be so gullible. Jesus.
exist and want to blend into society, not stand.
The vast majority of autogynephiles do want to blend in. And why do you not know that? Because they blended in And that's why they're not on social media going viral or creating TikToks, because the vast majority of them, the tens of millions, because we have to think, like, the trans women that you see on TikTok that go viral, who are, you know, these sort of weirdo, creepy people, like those are the minority. But we're forming our understanding of a population of tens of millions of people on a sample of extreme outliers who, because they're extreme outliers, they go viral on social media, and then you form this warped representation of what the average autogynephilic trans woman is like, where the average autogynephilic trans woman, you know, particularly once they're, you know, several years into to transition, they want to be normal, they want to blend in. Most of them are just normal people, and that they're living their lives. They're not out here doing this crazy stuff. And while yes, you know, there does seem to be, you know, a large statistical, you know, grouping within this population that does act, you know, inappropriately. We have to understand statistics here, people. We have to understand we're trying to sample a large population of tens of millions of people to form a representative sample. TikTok and social media and Twitter is not a representative sample. You have to dig deeper. You have to dig deeper to understand the phenomenon. Otherwise, you're going to be deluded into this idea that the only autogynephiles are the bad ones, the creepy ones, the ones that, you know, because the ones that don't look like that, everyone assumes, oh, those are the normal. A good example. There's reason to believe that Hunter Schafer, for example, the famous trans actress from Euphoria, is of the autogynephilic type, but you would never know that because she comes off as normal and she's pretty and she passes well, believe it or not. And also she's attracted to men, but that attraction to men comes from meta attraction. So there are lots of trans women who come off as normal and pretty and passable and blend in and blah, blah, blah. And they're of the autogynephilic type, but you don't know that because you sort of think that you can spot them, that I can spot the AGPs always. Well, that's not always true.
Stand out in it.
Meet Amy.
Trans earrings, really? Number 9, dressing like a little girl instead of dressing like a woman.
These are my pigtails, yes, they're real. I get costumed up, I can hoe. That tip me over part sounds kind of inappropriate though. So I'm gonna stop the song there and keep it kid friendly.
This does it all the time. Now to answer the question, why are there so many of these types of people? The sad part of this is that the majority of these people who call themselves trans women are not actually trans women. They are indeed autogynephiles. Here's a statistic. Nearly 3% of...
Okay, so she's citing okay, so let's just read this thing that she's quoting as her source of expertise. It says, the concept of autogynephilia defines a typology of male to female transsexualism and offers a theory of motivation for one type of male to female transsexualism. Okay, so right there we see that the very expert that she's citing to explain autogynephilia says that autogynephilia is a type of male to female transsexualism. So you can't say that, oh, if you're an autogynephile, you're not a transsexual, when literally the source you're citing says that autogynephilias are a type of transsexual. like, do you have any sense of logic or coherency, or you just... It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how you can be so stupid. Like, I don't get it.
Of men in Western countries might experience autogynephilia. And we already know the statistic for actual transsexual people. It is 0.03.
No, you literally just read that autogynephilia is a type of transsexualism. So you can't say that, oh, if you're an autogynephile, you're not a real transsexual, when literally the expert source you just cited said that autogynephilia is a subtype of transsexualism.
3% of the population. So 0.03% to 3%. It's a big difference. Here's what a few trans women, friends of mine, had to say about the difference between the two types of people.
From working in very trans heavy spaces, I worked in a very trans heavy bar for quite some time that was trans owned. I've seen thousands of trans people, and it's very easy to spot an autogynephile from classical transsexual. Classical transsexuals clearly have a natural feminine disposition. They like men. Autogynephiles, however, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, it's a kind of weird, autistic, goth girl.
Okay, you just said 9 times out of 10, which implies that there's 1 out of 10 who doesn't fall into that stereotype, which means that the phenomenon of autogynephilia is more diverse than you let on, and that you can't actually tell. And also, there are plenty of autogynephiles who come off as HSTS because of their strong meta attraction. And also, just redescribing the typology, saying that there's 2 different types, is not a logical argument for the idea that the autogynephilic type is not a true transsexual or not real transsexual. You're just redescribing the typology. But the typology says that there's 2 types of trans women, not that there's real trans women over here and then there's fake trans women. No, there's 2 types. This doesn't contradict anything.
Fetishy, their femininity is clumsy, over-sexualized when they get comfortable. They tend not to socialize with women easy. They tend not to date very easily. They tend to have a lot of discomfort. They tend to be very, very aggressive about pronouns. Whether or not an autogynephilic transsexual can truly be counted as a true transsexual or a trans woman is debatable.
So AGP is basically something that only men can get. It's something that straight men and bisexual men can get, where instead of being attracted to women, they're attracted to seeing themselves as women. This can drive them to cross-dressing, to cross-sex fantasy, to transitioning. The key difference between AGP transsexuals and other transsexuals.
This trans woman calls AGPs transsexuals, which is the correct understanding. I actually like this person, Truthful Transsexual. I've watched some of their videos and interviews, and it's like really good. And also, she has interviewed autogynephilic transsexuals and talked about them as being transsexuals. So this person is contradicting you, Ariel. She's contradicting you and saying that the autogynephilic type is a type of transsexual. She's describing the different underlying psychological motivations behind autogynephilia compared to HSTS, but she's not saying that they're not true trans or whatever. They're just different.
Is the motivation, because with AGP transsexuals, the motivation.
See, she's using the term AGP transsexual, and yet this whole video. Oh, look, my trans friends are saying that AGPs are not true transsexuals, when literally your quote unquote trans friend is saying that AGPs are a type of transsexual. And the other one said that it's a debate within the community about whether AGPs are transsexual or not. So it's just like get your shit together, lady. Like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Is autogynephilia, which is a paraphilia. It stems from erotic target location error. They have a mental illness, just like I have a mental illness. It's just theirs is a sex disorder.
Their lack of feminine disposition, though, makes their transitions a lot more difficult for themselves and others. Their attraction to transition is also very tied to femaleness.
Also, I think it's like a little like misleading to say that, like AGPs have a harder time transitioning because their transitions aren't successful because they're not as feminine. Well, HSTS, homosexual transsexuals, also have a hard time transitioning. Why? Because they have a hard time finding love and satisfaction in relationships because they want to be with straight men, and straight women see trans women as a fetish. And so it's very rare for a homosexual transsexual to find lasting true love and satisfaction in a relationship. And so, yeah, transition can be hard for homosexual transsexuals because of that. So to say that, we're more feminine, therefore our transitions are successful. Well, you can't judge the success of a transition merely on how well you can imitate women, because that's all the homosexual is. They're just better imitators of the female form because of their natural innate femininity. Um, but like they still have problems. It's not like, oh, you're homosexual, sexual, transsexual, your life is perfect. You know, they still have problems. And also, AGP transitions can be very successful if we define success as leading to happiness and contentment. There are plenty of AGPs out there who are living happy, successful, contented lives. And I think we should judge that as the basis of what a successful transition is, not like, how well we can imitate the female form.
In general is a wish to embody like periods and like very specific female things, whereas classical transsexuals or homosexual transsexuals don't have that fixation. They have a natural feminine disposition, and their transition is an extension of that. Now, Ray Blanchard specified that the classical transsexual was actually a homosexual transsexual. The naturally effeminized male with a feminine disposition is always homosexual, whereas AGPs are necessarily not. They are always innately attracted to women. They may at some point experience some kind of attraction to men, but that is a byproduct of their erotic fixation on femininity and femaleness, because the sense of being with men gives them a feeling of being feminine.
Now to answer the question, why are they so comfortable coming out? This one is easy, and I know you guys pretty much know the answer, but it is diversity, love, and acceptance. Years ago, these people would have simply been called cross-dressers, right? Or transvestites. And that would have been that. And people would have been okay with it. And they probably would have lived.
No, not all autogynephiles would have been seen as just transvestites, because who are the earliest trans women we know? I can't remember her name. It was like they made a movie out of it, The Danish Girl. The Danish Girl was one of the very first trans women to get transsexual surgery, which is supposed to be the sign that you're a true transsexual is you get the surgery. That very first trans woman who got the first trans surgery was an autogynephile because they were gynophilic. She was attracted to women. All throughout history, there's been trans women who, sought out, the surgical interventions, and they were of the autogynephilic type. So to say that, oh, the autogynephiles would have just been mere crossdressers. If you're a mere crossdresser, that means you don't have an interest. You don't have dysphoria about your body. But one of the more classical types of autogynephilia is anatomical autogynephilia, where you have where your autogynephilia centers around your anatomy, which can lead to autoandrophobia, which leads to dislike of one's body. You can severely dislike your genitals, and then you want to have a motivation to change your genitals to some degree or another. And that, so she's just like so confused about this, but she keeps talking about it as if she knows what she's talking about, which she doesn't.
Lived in San Francisco or New York City in the West Village. But the truth is, even today, people aren't the biggest fans of them because they can come across as creepy. But getting behind someone that has a mental condition or a medical condition or gender dysphoria, most people at this point can understand and get behind that. And because trans has been touted around the media as a major Democratic talking point.
Okay, so most people can get behind the concept of gender dysphoria. Well, who has gender dysphoria? Autogynephiles. It's just that the source of the gender dysphoria is the autogynephilia. And that was the whole purpose of the theory, is to explain the origins of the gender dysphoria. Not to say that, oh, well, if your gender dysphoria is like the origins are from your underlying AGP, then therefore it's not real gender dysphoria. No, that's stupid.
Point and a major thing to fight for in the past 6-7 years. Of course, more AGPs are claiming the trans label. This part is the most important part, how this is actually hurting transsexuals. Number one is over-sexualizing. Most people know that the number one reason trans women are actually killed, it's not what the media says, is because they are involved in sex work. Women are already over-sexualized, and actual transsexual women even more so. Many people simply see them as a fetish, something to conquer, something different, unique. And AGPs do a very, very, very good job of over-sexualizing themselves, as we've seen in this video so far.
Okay, so the over-sexualization by AGPs is not causing the men who engage in sex work with trans women to be violent towards them. That's so stupid. That doesn't make any sense. Sex work is inherently dangerous. It is inherently dangerous. it's not that, oh, like these trans men suddenly, you know, or these men, these chasers, these guys, these Johns who are, you know, seeking after the HSTS sex workers. It's not like they're doing that because, you know, they only they like, you know, watch too many AGPs on the internet or something. No, they already have a kink, and that kink for trans women has existed long before the rise of the internet. And so, yeah, this just doesn't make sense
so far. Number 2, fiction versus reality. Many AGPs either don't understand or pretend not to understand biological reality. If society,
yeah, but not all of them. And also, this like whole idea that if you're HSTS, you like, you know, are way more knowledgeable about reality and biology. No, that's not true. There definitely are some HSTS who, in my experience, you know, have some wackadoo ideas about, you know, how H or T changes their bodies because they've been misled by the science of transition. And that's not universally the case. And I do think on average, the homosexual transsexual is like more likely to understand that they're male and that, you know, that's, you can't change sexes and blah blah blah. But it's not like inherent to the phenomenon. It's not like it's impossible for a HSTS to have some sort of, you know, bad idea about how biology works or whatever. So it's not like being a homosexual is somehow like inoculation against ignorance. I mean, come on. And also there's plenty of AGPs out there who understand that they're male, and that they understand that sex change is impossible. You just don't talk about them because that doesn't fit into your narrative.
confuses them with actual trans women, society would just think that all of them are either crazy or dumb, or both. Number 3, the creepy pedophile label. LGBT people in general have had to overcome the creepy pedophile label quite a bit over the last 50 years. Having these AGPs out there dressing like kids, acting creepy, wanting to speak directly to kids is not the way forward. Alexis on X said, it definitely does not help separate us from fetishists.
Just looking at that picture, I would almost definitely I guess that Alexis is is of the autogynephilic type. There's plenty of AGPs out there who sort of cosplay as HSTS, and their HSTS is derived from meta attraction. So you can't just assume that just because someone says that, like, oh, I'm not AGP, that they're not AGP, because AGP comes in all shapes and sizes. And also part of the phenomenon is wanting to separate yourself out, and or there is a implicit psychological motivation. There's strong incentives for these trans women who are of the autogynephilic type to try and align themselves as being more truly compatible with the claim that they're women, or they're women on the inside, or they're living authentic lives as like women. You see this all the time. For example, Brianna Wu is of the autogynephilic type, in my opinion. But she sort of comes off as saying like, oh, that's not me. I'm a true transsexual, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh yeah.
The AGPs claiming to be the same as us are looking to ride our coattails into acceptance, but in reality just paints us all as deviants or even predators. Ooh, preach, girl. How this hurts society. The public has said, this is what happens when you allow gender ideology to run wild.
As far as the correlation between AGP and PDF files, Ray Blanchard himself, the expert on this topic, has said that these are not overlapping, or that there's not a higher incidence within the AGP population, because they'll say that paraphilia's cluster, AGP is a paraphilia and PDF file is a paraphilia. So therefore there's a correlation between there. But Ray Blanchard himself says that that correlation is not higher than you expect in the general population of males. Because again, 3 to 6% of the male population is autogynephilic. That's tens of millions of people within a population as big as tens of millions of people. Just like in a population of non-AGP men of 3 to 6%, you're going to have a certain percentage of that population who are PDF files. Within the autogynephilic population, you're also going to have a certain percentage who are PDF files. So we can't say that there's sort of an intrinsic relationship between the phenomenon. It's just a correlation, but not correlation does not mean causation. So this is just like bad statistics, bad sampling. And like, yes, I am fully on board with safeguarding and calling this out and, you know, bringing people's attention and like, you know, raising issues about safety and like, you know, locker rooms and bathrooms and single sex spaces, all this stuff. But we can do all that without making bad statistical errors in forming our sample of the population. We don't have to make caricatures and make and say things that are false.
Wild. Leftist male politicians in Mexico have begun self-identifying as women in order to run in elections where there are not enough female candidates where available. Ridiculous.
Mexico. Leftist male politicians are self-identifying as women in upcoming municipal election to secure candidacy.
That doesn't really have anything to do with autogynephilia.
Be real. This was only a matter of time. 2 left-wing parties in Mexico are under fire after.
Okay, well, I think I've said enough. I've done my critique, and yeah. So I said enough. So Ariel, please educate yourself, please. But before you make another video about autogynephilia, please just educate yourself and like apply some brain power, please. Like think critically about this issue because you're misleading people. You are distorting the facts, and that is bad. So, okay. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.